Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to be here today and conducting this really awesome training on employee supervision. Let me get my screen share going for you here. All right. So, hope everyone is doing well on this wonderful February Wednesday. Hope your 2025 is starting out well. We got a lot of information to unpack in a very short amount of time, so I'm going to jump right on into employee supervision. You know, we continue to hear in the media, every single week there's a new incident that is happening in early education programs. It's just this ongoing cycle. I've told this story for many years. We had a situation in Texas right before the pandemic where there was an infant teacher that had abused multiple children over several years, and it finally came out, and there was a lot of media about it. We've got some current situations going on right now with teachers that are mistreating children, and just some other behaviors that are happening in the classroom that are not appropriate and definitely not related to the program's mission or philosophy or what we want to stand for. And every single time you see, or you read about one of these situations, there's always something in the article or in the news report that talks about if this teacher or if this caregiver has been abusing so many children for so long, somebody in that program had to have known of their behavior. And almost every single time you read one of these articles, it will always say, where was the director? Why didn't the leader of the program know that this was happening to the children? And look, I've been working, in this industry since 1987, and I've experienced a lot in my time as a director, as a multi-site operator, as an owner and operator, as a trainer and coach. Trust me, I understand that there are people out there that know how to get away with stuff. They know when the director's walking around. They know when the director's not walking around. They have one particular behavior when there's another adult in the classroom. They have a completely separate behavior when they're by themselves, And we also know that there's people out there, even if you have cameras in your classroom, they know where the blind spots are. They know where they can't be seen. They know when they are going to be seen. Y'all, there are people out there like that. We've got a case going on here in Texas right now that's getting a lot of media attention. And this was a very clear case of, this person knew that they were on camera, but they, knew where their opportunities were. And there was an ongoing behavior where the teacher did not maintain self-control, did not demonstrate competency, and had really poor judgment. So it's a really interesting and sad case right there. And while I understand that, you've got people that have that mentality, I do also have to go back to what the media always questions: where was the director? So I remember back, 6 years ago, whenever the one case with the infant teacher was all over the news, and there was a particular article written in the Dallas Morning News about this, and again, they were really questioning the director's presence, and why didn't the director know that this was happening? And I called a meeting with my leadership team at the time, and we got together, and I shared this article, and we talked about the story, and then, we really started having some great organic conversation about how to enhance employee supervision in the school and how to enhance our presence in the facility. And it's not about walking around your building and catching people doing stuff wrong. It's about being present in your facility, being present in the classroom, being that mentor, being that coach, and being proactive. right? And that's what it's all about, is about being proactive. I talk about this in so many of my leadership trainings where, the director should always be the first to speak. You should never wait for a problem to come to you. You should always approach the problem first, right? Whether it's with a parent, whether it's with an employee, whether it's with a regulatory agency, that's what it's all about. So what I'm going to discuss in today's training are just some of those characteristics right there. And how can we be one step ahead? So my objectives for this training today is to kind of really dig into the role and the responsibility of the leader when it comes to employee supervision and accountability. We'll talk about that. We'll focus practicing on employee skills, abilities, and trainings before they give a job assignment. And y'all, this is really important when it comes to employee supervision. Once again, it's about being proactive and really evaluating, am I giving that employee a job assignment that they can be successful at? Do they have the skills, the ability, and the training to be successful with today's job assignment? Especially if you're having to move people around and shuffle people around a little bit. A lot of times when we do have, supervision issues or a lack of competency, a lack of poor judgment, a lot of it we got to look in the mirror and come back to the leader. Did we set that person up for success? Did we give them an appropriate job assignment based on their skills, ability, and training? So there's something for us to learn right there. And then we're going to talk about some techniques for knowing what your employees are doing and how they are fulfilling their job assignments. And I want you to really focus on this material with positive intent, all right? How can I enhance my leadership skills? How can I enhance my processes and practices in my school? Even if you're doing really good and you've got really good compliance history and your employees are at the top of their game, y'all, we can always do better, right? Because it only takes one person in that tiny little moment where their window of tolerance is very narrow, okay, to have poor judgment and to, lose control and sink the Titanic, right? So your presence, your ongoing presence, your ongoing positive support is so incredibly important right here. So we look at, what are the leader's responsibilities? This is coming from some of our standards and guidelines. This is coming from best practices, the National Health and Safety Performance Standard Guidelines for Early Care and Education Programs. You look at all of these publications, and this is basically what you get right here. The primary responsibility of the leader of the program is to, make sure that your early education program daily is in compliance with all standards and regulations for your particular state. As far as our regulatory agencies are concerned, that's your primary job assignment right there. Well, we all know really well, one person can't do that, right? It takes everybody doing their part to ensure daily compliance with standards and regulations. One operational policy that I always encourage programs to have, and I know I've always put this like at the very beginning of my operational policies, employee handbook and parent handbook, all employees are required to know and comply with standards and regulations. If you are aware of another employee who is not complying with standards and regulations, it is your responsibility to report that to the center director. And so I basically have in my policy manual that, it's your job to be a tattletale, right? But that's accountability right there. And we want our employees to hold each other accountable. And just like these incidents that we talked about, at the beginning of the webinar today, whether it's that infant teacher that was abusing children, that 2-year-old teacher that was kicking children, y'all, somebody had to have known of that behavior, or someone had to be aware that the potential of the adult behavior was there. Why didn't someone notify the director? So, we want to set that expectation right up front, that not only do you have that responsibility of knowing and complying with standards and regulations, but you also have the responsibility of reporting it. And in my opinion, if you have an employee that is aware of another employee that is not meeting expectations, if they don't report it, they're just as guilty as that other employee. And that's my opinion right there. And also all employees comply with the standards. I'm a big advocate for every one of your employees having a copy of standards and regulations. And then you'll see here again with leadership responsibilities, all employees have assignments that match their skills, their ability, and their training. Y'all, I really want y'all to focus on that one. And look, I understand that we're still in this workforce crisis. We are still struggling to, get and maintain high quality employees that are willing to meet and exceed expectations. Yes, we're still in this struggle. It's getting better, but we're still there. All right. I understand that you've got ratios that have to be met. You've got classrooms that have to be covered. But as a leader, we have to do a better job of making sure that our employees have the skills, the ability, and training for that particular job assignment. And then the last bullet point that you see right here is the big one. All employees are supervised. Supervision includes, but not limited to, knowing what the employee is doing and ensuring that they are fulfilling their job assignment and responsibilities. And that's what today's workshop is all about. Okay, we're going to talk about how we're going to meet that expectation. Now you'll see I put in the yellow box there, and what I have on the screen is exactly what you have in your handout for those of you that got the handout. Developing and implementing your early education program's operational policies, which must comply or exceed standards and regulations in your area. Y'all, that is key. And you've not only heard me talk about this, but you've heard so many other industry experts talk about this. The most important documents in your business are your employee handbook, your parent handbook, and your job descriptions. And when we talk about employee supervision, and when we talk about employee accountability, okay, that needs to be addressed in your program's operational policies. That's the foundation right there, all right? When you want successful employee leadership, it starts with your operating policies. And then next we go into developing written personnel policies, including those job descriptions, job responsibilities, and requirements. And here, with job descriptions, job responsibilities, and requirements, I like to make this very age specific. So the responsibilities and requirements for an infant teacher are going to look very different than the responsibilities and requirements for a pre-K teacher. And even when it comes to employee supervision, when you're in and out of those classrooms, you're going to be looking and listening and feeling different things depending on the age group that you go into. All right. And when I say feeling, I don't mean physical touch. I'm talking about the energy of the room, the atmosphere of the room, the feelings and the emotions in the room. It's the nonverbal communication, in my opinion, is the most important part about employee supervision. It's not what you see and hear that's going to protect your program. It's what do you feel when you're in and out of those classrooms. All right. And we're going to talk about that more in just a little bit. And then, of course, the last thing here with leadership responsibilities is to make those provisions for training. All right. Based on what you see, you hear, you feel, you adapt training plans based on that. So employee supervision is not just about keeping your program in compliance, making sure that your employees are fulfilling their job expectations, but it's also the coaching and mentoring part. These are opportunities for you. It's opportunities for you to help your employees grow and reach their full potential, but it's also that opportunity for encouragement, for compassion, for empathy, right? So don't roll your eyes and go, oh, I got to go walk around the building now. I got to go walk in and out of those classrooms. No, be excited about that, because the potential for you to lead is just wonderful, right? So look for the potential. Now, I'm a very visual person. I've got to see things, see it, touch it, taste it, hear it. I'm a very visual person like that, sensory person. So I kind of took these leaders' responsibilities and kind of put it in this format right here. So how does all of this tie together, right? Well, it starts right here in the core. So all employees are supervised. So once again, supervision includes but not limited to knowing what the employee is doing and ensuring that they are fulfilling their job assignments and responsibilities. So on top of that, we first have to make sure that they have assignments that match their skills, their ability, and the training. So you can see feeding into that is your opportunity to make provisions for training. On both sides of the circle, we have employees comply with standards and regulations. And when your employees comply with standards and regulations, when your employees are successfully supervised, okay, then over here, your program operates in compliance. Your children are safe. Your children are receiving developmentally appropriate learning. All right. Your teachers are lending skills to the children that are needed when the world doesn't go their way. Your parents are happy. The world is happy. Success. Okay. And then once again, you can see down at the bottom, the core is those operational policies, those personnel policies, those job descriptions, job responsibilities, and requirements. So maybe this little visual right here kind of helps you see how this all comes together a little bit more. All right. So let's just kind of go into, what this is going to look like and what you're going to do right here. Okay. So when you enter a classroom, all right, these are the things that we like to focus on right here. And again, so much of what I teach, so much of what I coach is always an adult first, child second model. The adult has to be composed before you can expect the child to compose. The adult has to have the skills of self-regulation before you can co-regulate a child. This is what we practice in the classroom. When we take that into a leadership model, it's no different. All right. The leader has to have the composure first. And y'all, look, I get it. They never call the office and say, hey, I need help in the classroom at the most appropriate times. I don't think any of you ever have been sitting in the office filing your fingernails or looking at a magazine going, man, I wish some teacher would need some help right now. No, that's not how it works, right? It's usually you've got a deadline with your food program. You've got to get attendance submitted to your subsidy agency. The phone has rang 15 times today. You've got a tour coming in 5 minutes. And that's when the teacher calls and says, I need help in the classroom. So practicing self-regulation and practicing composure is very important for the leader. Whether you're being called into that classroom or you're just making your rounds and you're walking around the school, you have to gain composure before you step in the classroom, because I want y'all to be aware of the energy that you're bringing into the classroom, right? And I've seen this so many times where, and it could be a leader, it could be a parent, it could be a a licensing inspector that, they walk into the classroom with negative energy and the children, boom, instantly pick up on that. So before you step into that classroom, you need to be aware of your intent, your energy, and what are you bringing into the classroom. All right? Remember, what you focus on, you get more of. So we're going to focus on success. We're going to focus on the expectations. All right? Don't make preconceived judgment on what you think you're going to walk in and get out of that classroom. All right? Because then you're walking into the classroom with negative intent. So like I said earlier, whenever I walk into a classroom, it's not so much what do I see and what do I hear, but it's the energy of the room. If I walk into a classroom and the children seem stressed, the children seem anxious, right? The children seem frustrated, the room is a little chaotic, right? That is a sign right there, okay? This is when I need to go to that teacher and say, hey, the environment of the room seems a little stressful. How can I help you? Remember, you should always be the first to speak. All right? How can I help you? How can I support you? Or look at the body language of the teacher. Does the teacher seem stressed? Does the teacher seem frustrated? Right? Hey, your body is saying you seem frustrated. How can I support you? How can I help you? All right? And use the word you seem frustrated, you seem stressed, rather than you are. The difference between saying you are angry versus you seem angry. When you say that you go to someone, you say, you are angry, you are stressed, that's judgment. And judgment comes from the survival part of our brain. And the response to that is going to be fight or retreat. All right? When you walk into a classroom and you say, you seem stressed, you seem frustrated, that's noticing. All right? Noticing comes from the higher centers of the brain, our executive functions, right? And that's going to keep people in that cooperative state. So, and y'all, this takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice to use words like you seem versus you are. And of course, when you hit them in that survival state, they're going to react. They're not going to respond. They're going to react with a rebuttal. They're going to go into blame and attack mode. And we want to keep them out of blame and attack mode. Okay, so watch for that right there. Now, when you go into a classroom, whether you're called back to the classroom or you're just making your daily rounds, we have to transition ourselves into becoming a coach leader. Because a lot of times the teachers want us to come into the classroom and solve the problems for them. And if I go into a classroom and I solve the problem for them, then no learning is taking place. They're just going to continue with the same skills and the same behavior. All right? So when you go into that classroom, you're going to look for coaching opportunities. All right? So that you can go to the teacher and maybe stand behind the teacher and say, okay, go over to this child and say this. Walk over to that group of children and do this. Right? And if it doesn't work, okay, that didn't work. Let's do this. All right? And coach them so that they can gain the skills. But you're doing a big disservice when you go in and you solve the problem for them. All right? Unless it is an immediate health and safety concern. Right? If it is an immediate health and safety concern, then by all means you need to take action. Okay? Watch for that nonverbal communication with both the adult and the children. Y'all, the kids are going to show you and tell you, what you need to know in that classroom. All right? Watch for their nonverbal cues too. Their feelings and their emotions. If I walk into a classroom and the children are joyful and they're laughing and they're smiling and they're playing, and the dominant noise in the room is the children's laughter, y'all, then there's fantastic stuff going on in that room. But if I walk into the classroom and kids are crying, kids are shouting, kids are being aggressive, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of chaos. Ooh, I need to stay right here and do some coaching and mentoring in this room, all right? But be that one step ahead right there. Another thing that I've always done whenever I do my rounds, when I'm walking around the school, I will always look at the lesson plan, look at the daily schedule or activity plan before I walk into that room. We've always had them posted right outside our classroom doors. If it's not posted right outside the classroom door, then I'll have it posted right inside the classroom door, depending on the layout of the facility. But as soon as I go to a classroom, I'm going to look at that lesson plan or activity plan or daily schedule. And if it's, 12:34 on Wednesday, according to that lesson plan or daily schedule, what should be happening in this classroom at this time? And so when you walk into the classroom, you see, if it says that they should be in circle time right now, are they in circle time? And if they're not, if there's been a change to the daily schedule, you question that. Hey teacher, according to your daily schedule, you should be in circle time right now. What's up? And it might be, hey, you know what? We started circle, wasn't going too well, was going down the toilet, so I quickly made a change. Okay, that's real, right? That's real life. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? You'd be surprised how many times I walk into a classroom to do an assessment or observation and the teacher's like, what lesson plan? I didn't know we had a lesson plan. I've never seen one of those before. Y'all, honestly, you'd be surprised of that. Okay, so, do that little curriculum check. Structure and routine is critical for employee supervision. And I mentioned this in a lot of my trainings, especially on classroom management. I just did a training yesterday on successful transitions in the classroom. But that lesson plan is your blueprint for success. Children need structure, children need routine, children need predictability. So do adults, right? Our teachers and even us, the leaders, our brain craves the same thing. So this is a big indicator when it comes to employee supervision. If you're going in and out of these classrooms and your teachers are not following their schedules, if they're not following their activity plans, that's a red flag. And we need to have a conversation about that, okay? But if you're constantly walking around your building and you see that the schedules are being followed, that there's structure and routine in place, that's a good sign, all right? So, that's another really good check for you right there. And of course, that's the next bullet point I have, is that structure and routine in the classroom, all right? So these are the things that we're going to be looking for whenever we enter the room. And, whether I'm at a particular school and I'm walking around, going in and out of classrooms, or even being a multi-site operator and supervising multiple schools at one time, you're always going to have situations where you spend a little bit more time in one particular area versus others. You're always going to have those one or two classrooms that need a little bit more attention from you. If you're a multi-site operator, there's always going to be one or two schools that need a little bit more attention from you. And that's what we're here for. That is our role and responsibility, to provide that adequate attention to, those classrooms that need it. But where I have seen the mistake made is you spend most of your time on those classrooms that are in need, and then we ignore the classrooms that you think don't need you. All right? So be careful with the wallflowers. Be careful with the classrooms that fly under the radar. Just because your immediate perception is that everything is good, they don't need me, y'all, they need you. All right? They need your presence just as much as everybody else. Okay? So even though you may spend a lot of time coaching and mentoring certain classrooms or certain schools, don't forget about the others. They still need your presence. Okay? So that's just a little reminder. And I have definitely found myself being guilty of this, from time to time. You spend so much time on one particular area that it's like, oh, I haven't been in that pre-K classroom in 5 days. I need to get over there and spend some time in that room. Here are just some of the techniques that I have used in the past to help me with successful supervision. My favorite thing is what I call a half-hour ratio check. And if you go to my website, timthetrainer.com, and go to my documents page, so hover over where it says trainings and you'll see the drop-down list and you can click on documents. I've got a sample half-hour ratio check. And what I like to coach my team on is, every 30 minutes or as often as possible, okay, I always have to give that disclaimer, as often as possible, a member of the leadership team will walk around the building and we document, I got my little clipboard, and we document how many children and how many adults are present in that classroom at that particular time. And yes, we do this every 30 minutes or as often as possible every single day. And there's multiple reasons why this practice is so important. Number one, it's helping you stay in ratio. It's helping you maintain those group sizes. It's fantastic for forecasting when you're having to do your schedules and planning for your staff hours. That's important right there. But from a significant event standpoint, if you were to have a significant event in your school, such as severe weather, a fire, an intruder that comes into your facility, right? You need to have knowledge of how many humans do you have in your facility at that exact moment. How many adults and how many children are in your program at that exact moment. So doing the half-hour ratio checks, helps you keep up with this. That I have 112 humans in my building at this point in time. And sometimes my team have made fun of me in the past because I'm like a sticky note king. I love my sticky notes, and I'll do my half-hour ratio checks, and then, in between, as kids are coming in or as children are leaving, I'm over here doing my little marks on my sticky note. So again, I've always got that knowledge of how many humans are in my building. If I were to get, we were to have a tornado that hit my program and there was, some huge, loss, when the emergency personnel show up, they're going to need to know exactly how many people to look for. And if you say, well, I think we had about 100 and you really had 102, that's 2 people that they're not looking for. All right? So that's like the biggest thing with the half-hour ratio checks. But for the sake of this conversation, it forces the leaders to walk around the school. Okay? And, if you have a director and 2 assistant directors, if you have a director and 1 assistant director, if the owner is officed at your school, however your structure looks, we'll kind of rotate this so that it's a different person walking around the building, okay? But this is going to keep your presence known, all right? So that we're walking in and out. And if I ever catch one of my leaders doing this on the intercom, where they just call the classroom on the intercom and they say, how many? That's not pretty, all right? We're about to have a difficult conversation. I want them physically walking around the building and not even standing at the classroom door and poking your head in. You know how many? Right? No, actually walk into the classroom. Walk around the classroom so that you can be checking on all of those items that we just talked about. Okay? And it doesn't take a whole lot of time. My favorite part about doing half-hour ratio checks, this is so fun. Like, if I walk into the classroom with my clipboard and my pen, and as soon as I walk into the classroom and the children go 18, you know, it's like the kids know better than the adults sometimes, you know, how many people are in there. And then, you know, I've had it where the teachers have gone, oh, no, we have 6. Oh, they're right, it is 18, you know, so sometimes the kids are more on top of it. So, you know, I've seen half-hour ratio checks or hourly ratio checks, however you choose to do it. I've seen this model done many, many different ways. That's fine, whatever works best for you. But just put something in place that is that reminder for you to walk around the building. And I know that, you know, sometimes you're like, I don't have time for this. I've got food program paperwork. I've got subsidy attendance. I've got billing. Y'all, you got to make time for this. All right. That's why it's important. But if we rotate it amongst the managers, you can get it done. I am a big advocate for observations and assessments. In my schools, we've always had the expectations that we do quality assessments once a quarter. So every 3 months or so, we do formal observations and assessments on the classrooms. Again, that way you can get in there and actually spend some good amount of time on, you know, the physical environment, the health and safety of the classroom, the interactions, the engagement in the classroom. But I really am a big fan of observations and assessments. Even if you can have someone from the outside, whether you have a quality rating system in your state, or if you're nationally accredited, or, you know, CDA assessments, you know, anything that's third party, I think is good because it gives you a non-biased opinion of what's going on in your classroom. So these type of things also really help support employee supervision. Welcome walks, if you don't catch those teachers first thing in the morning whenever they come in. If you're the opening manager, you're probably saying good morning to your teachers as they come in. But if you're that mid manager, or if you're the closing manager and you come in later in the day, I know that sometimes when we walk in, we get slapped in the face with, you know, a problem or an opportunity to lead. That's what I like to call it. They're not problems, they're not conflicts, they're opportunities to lead. But make sure that you carve out that time for welcome walks so that you can go around the building, walk into the classroom, say good morning to everyone, check on the energy of the rooms, all of that stuff that we just mentioned. But, you know, we talk a lot about greetings and how children are greeted when they first enter the classroom sets the tone for the entire day. Y'all, it's no different for adults, all right? How they are greeted when they first walk into your school is going to set their tone. But if you're not there when they first walk in, you walking around and doing your welcome walk is setting the tone for you for the rest of the day. All right? And I like it, the way I like to do this, if I'm the mid manager or the closing manager, it's like when I come in and I put all my stuff away, it's like I don't even want to talk to the director on duty until I do my welcome walk. Because if I talk to the director on duty first, they're going to give me an earful on what's gone on this morning. And that could create judgment, okay? I want to walk around that school and say good morning and kind of get my feel with a clean slate. That's just what I prefer. We like to do motivation and encouragement walks throughout the day. So once again, you're going in and out of those classrooms, being aware of what your teachers are doing and ensuring that they are fulfilling their job requirements and responsibilities. But at the same time, giving that encouragement, giving that motivation, whatever it might be, and be silly, be fun, you know. I could write a book on some of the crazy fun things that we've done just walking around the building, you know, pumping the teachers up. So I enjoy that kind of stuff right there. And then, like I said, the curriculum checks. Not only when you're doing your half-hour ratio checks before you walk into that classroom, check the lesson plan, check the daily schedule, but anytime I have a director of education or an education specialist, whatever that position is called in your school, they do at least once a day go in and do an official curriculum check, and it's at different times throughout the day. All right. So again, just making sure that that structure and that routine is in place. Are they following the expectations that are outlined? So kind of a follow-up right here on employee supervision, and kind of ask yourself these questions and be open and honest right here. Be open and honest because we want to practice the positive intent. We want to recognize the opportunities for growth, right, with everybody. But how can you enhance your employee supervision? All right, what can you do different? What can you do better? Are you willing to do something different? All right, are you willing to practice a new skill? I was just on a call yesterday. I was doing a coaching call yesterday with someone, and you know, I had to kind of stop and ask the person, you know, are you willing to, you know, practice these new skills? Because we got to focus on that willingness first, right? So you just can't assume that the willingness to practice a new skill is going to be there. What would your employees say about how you supervise? Do your employees believe that you're present in the classroom an adequate amount of time? Do your employees feel like they're being supported and encouraged? And I think it's a good idea to just ask them this, all right? Just randomly pull people in the office and say, hey, tell me what your opinion is of my supervision. What would you say about it? And get that honest feedback from them and accept that honest feedback from them. Again, have those conversations about who else is responsible for employee supervision. Create that culture where your team can confidently hold each other accountable, all right? And talk about this in your staff meetings. Talk about this in your professional development. Talk about it when you do onboarding and pre-service and orientation. You know, it's the power of unity. We are all in this together. And I want people to hold me accountable, right? I want people to remind me of when I'm not meeting an expectation, right? We all need that in our lives. Create that culture of accountability, all right? You don't want your employees to be afraid of this. You want your employees to welcome, okay, accountability right there. And then probably the most important thing that I hope you take away from this training today is when you get done with this, go back and do a nice comprehensive review of your policy manuals. And is employee supervision addressed? Is accountability addressed in your operating policies? And if not, let's work on that. All right. Let's work on that right there. Okay, very cool. That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I hope that this was helpful to you. Please know that you can always reach out to me with any questions that you have about the training, or if you need more information beyond the scope of the training material, you can always reach out to me. My website is right there on the screen. It's also on the handout for those of you that got the handout, timthetrainer.com. If you look in the top right-hand corner of my website, you can click on, there's a messaging service up there. You can click on that and send me a message, or you can send me an email, and it's really easy, Tim@timthetrainer.com, or you can always give us a call in the office and we're definitely here for you. We believe in the power of unity. We are all in this together. We've got to support each other, and that's what we're all about right there. If you don't follow me on social media, please follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Again, it's Tim the Trainer, so really easy to find me. We do a lot of tips of the day, leadership tips, classroom tips, conscious discipline tips, motivational and encouraging things. So please follow me on social media if you don't already do so. And then the Words Matter campaign, if you go to my website, timthetrainer.com, I have a free training right now on Words Matter. We are early educators. I understand that there are a lot of people that, they just don't want to read anything, or they have a hard time comprehending the reading. So I've basically turned it into a little half-hour training, and it's free. So that particular training on Words Matter, We Are Early Educators, is free on my website, and you can get a half hour of training for that. We've had a lot of schools that have had their entire team do the Words Matter training and had some really good conversations about the material afterwards. The feedback that we're getting on this has just been so phenomenal. So check that out. We've got that for you too. Also, when you go to my website, timthetrainer.com, I have a free early educator assessment that you can have your employees do to kind of help you with those skills, ability, and training, kind of be able to determine where we need to make provisions for training, where are their strong areas, where are their weak areas. And again, you can find that right there on the home page of my website. And that is a really, really free, useful tool to help you with employee supervision, to help you grow your people. And what I encourage schools to do is you can set up an online charge account on our website. And so that way with your account manager, you'll designate someone to be the account manager, and that person will have access to all of the trainings that your employees do and have access to the certificates. And there's no fee for that. You just get charged for whatever trainings that they do that month. But with the assessment piece, if you set up that account and you assign an account manager, when your employees complete the early educator assessment, then the account manager will have access to the results. All right. So, we can get that set up for you too. All right. Awesome. It was wonderful to be with everyone today. Thank you for joining us. I wish you well. Thank you for doing the job that you do. You have no idea how much you are appreciated. So thanks everyone so much.